What's yours best, nsfw, joke. I saw someone fighting a pregnant woman, so I had to step in to make it 2v2. Two guys are walking down the street when they see a dog licking his balls. One guy says, "I wish I could do that." The other replies, "Well, maybe just try petting him first." A guy goes to the doctor. After the examination, the doctor says, "Sir, you have a piece of lettuce protruding from your ass." The guy responds, "Doc, that's just the tip of the iceberg." A guy goes in for a prostate check. "Doc, all right, Phil, try not to get a boner." Guy, "Phil, my name isn't Phil." Doc, "I know, it's mine." What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea? I've never asked to have a garbanzo bean on my face. So there are these three pregnant women in the OB-GYN's waiting room. A redhead, a brunette, and a blonde. All knitting baby sweaters. So they knit and they knit. And then the redhead pops a pill. The other two gasp. "It's okay," the redhead says. "This is just calcium. I want my baby to have strong bones." So they knit and they knit. And then the brunette pops a pill. The other two gasp. "It's okay," the brunette says. "This is just vitamin C. I want my baby to have a strong immune system." So they knit and they knit. And then the blonde pops a pill. The other two gasp. "It's okay," the blonde says. "This is just thalidomide. I can't get the arms on this sweater right." Two nuns are riding their bicycles through the village. One says, "I've never come this way before." The other replies, "Me neither. It must be the cobblestone." What did the egg say to the boiling water? "Give me a minute to get hard. I just came out of this chick." Drunk guy walks into a bar, starts drinking. Drinks so much, he pukes all over his shirt. Drunk guy says, "Shit. What will I tell my wife? She hates my drinking and this will end me." Bartender says, "You got $10. Put it in your shirt pocket and tell your wife some drunk guy puked on your shirt." Drunk guy says, "That's a great idea." Finally, drunk guy walks home and find his wife waiting for him on the porch. Drunk guy says to his wife, "Before you get mad, I bumped into a drunk guy and he puked all over my shirt. He gave me $10 to buy a new one." Wife says, "But there's $20 here." Drunk guy says, "Yeah, the fucking guy shit in my pants too." What does a robot do during a one-night stand? He nuts and bolts. An old man is sitting on his porch, and sees a kid walking by carrying a roll of duct tape. Old guy yells out, "Hey kid! Where you going with that duct tape?" "Gonna catch me some ducks," says the kid. "What? You can't catch ducks with duct tape," he yells back, but the kid continues on his way. Couple hours later, the kid is walking back the other way, carrying 4 ducks wrapped up in duct tape. The old man can't believe it. Next day, the old guy is sitting on his porch again and sees the kid walking by. This time he's got a roll of chicken wire under his arm. Old guy yells out, "Hey kid! Where you going with that chicken wire?" "Gonna catch me some chickens," says the kid. "Seriously? You can't catch chickens with chicken wire," he yells back, but once again the kid just continues on his way. Later that day, the kid walks back the other way and, sure enough, he's got a half-dozen chickens wrapped up in the chicken wire. The old guy is astounded. Next day, once again the old guy is sitting out on his porch and sees the kid walking in front of his house. He yells out, "Hey kid, what cha got under your arm there? Pussy willow," says the kid. "Hang on, I'll go get my hat." Slite. Why does Helen Keller only masturbate with one hand? "Give it to me. Give it to me," she yelled. "I'm so wet. Give it to me now." She could scream all she wanted, but I was keeping the umbrella. A guy goes into a bar and asks the bartender for a gin and tonic. Bartender reaches under the counter and hands him an apple. The man is confused. He says, "I asked for a gin and tonic." The bartender says, "Try it, trust me." The man takes a bite and chews it, then he looks surprised. "Wow, this tastes just like gin," he says. The bartender says, "Now turn it around." The man turns the apple around and takes another bite. "Wow, this tastes like tonic." A second man walks up to the bar and asks the bartender for a rum and coke. The bartender reaches under the counter and hands him an apple. The second man says, "I asked for a rum and coke." The bartender says, "Try it, trust me." The man takes a bite and chews it, Then he looks surprised. "Wow, this tastes like rum." The bartender says, "Now turn it around." The man turns the apple around and takes another bite. "Wow, this tastes like Coke." A third man walks up to the bar and asks the bartender if he has anything special. The first man says, "This guy has magic apples that taste like anything you want." The third man is intrigued. He asks the bartender, "Do you have an apple that tastes like pussy?" The bartender chuckles, reaches under the counter and hands him an apple. The third man eagerly bites into an apple, chews, then spits it out. "This tastes like shit," he says. The bartender says, "Turn it around." Three gays are in a hot tub. Then suddenly a large blob of semen comes to the top. One of the guys steps up angry and asks, "What did one lesbian vampire say to another? See you next month." A penguin was driving her car when it started shaking and making a noise. Fortunately, she was able to make it to a mechanic before it stopped running. The mechanic told her it would be a couple of hours before he could get to it, so he suggested the penguin hang out at the ice cream shop across the street. The penguin grabbed her laptop from the car and headed across the street to check email and do some work. 2 hours later she went back to the shop and spoke with the mechanic. The penguin asked, "What's the problem? Is it the transmission?" The mechanic responded, "It looks like you blew a seal," to which the penguin responded, "Nah, that's just a little ice cream," as she wiped her chin. A bit of a longer one. A woman is in the hospital in a coma, hooked up to all the monitors. One day, while the nurse was cleaning the wife, she noticed a blip of brain activity as she washed her nether region. The nurse scrambled to grab the doctor to show him. The doctor ran the sponge over again, another blip. He was a little more vigorous, and a stronger series of blips, but nothing bringing back consciousness. The doctor rushed out and called the husband and told him to rush over to the hospital. When the husband arrived, the doctor let him know that there was some brain activity, and it may be a weird request, but oral may bring his wife back. The husband was flabbergasted, but after being reassured no one would interrupt, he went in and shut the blinds. The doctors and nurses gathered around the nurses' station when suddenly, alarm bells started going off. The doctor and nurse ran in to help and just see the husband sitting beside her. "Doctor. What happened?" "Husband. I think she choked." One day, Superman and Batman were in the pub having a drink and chatting away. Superman was saying how, when he is bored, he likes to cruise around in the sky looking down at people in their backyards. Batman says, "You must have some good stories to tell about what you've seen folks do in their backyards." Superman replies, "Funny you should say that. Just the other day I was cruising around and saw Wonder Woman lying naked on her back with her legs apart." "Wow." Batman was amazed. "What did you do?" "Well, I started to feel really horny right there and then, so I got my dick out and swooped down onto her," replied Superman. "I bet she had the shock of her life," exclaimed Batman. "Not half the shock that the Invisible Man got," replied Superman. What do you call a quadruple amputee laying on your doorstep? Matt. And the quadruple amputee in your pool? Bob. And the one hanging on your wall? Art. What about a one-legged woman? Eileen. What about a one-legged Asian woman? Irene. A blonde and a brunette are on an elevator. Elevator stops and a man gets on. Elevator continues. The ladies see that the man has terrible dandruff, but don't say anything. Elevator stops, man gets off. Elevator continues. Brunette says to the blonde, "Geez, that guy could really use some head and shoulders." Blonde replies, "Well, I would, but I don't know how to give shoulders." It's from a movie, but what's the difference between a G-spot and a golf ball? I'll spend 20 minutes looking for a golf ball. What do Dale Earnhardt and Pink Floyd have in common? Their last big hit was The Wall. A man is making a long journey in the desert with his camel. He has been walking for days and suddenly has the urge to have sex. With no other options, he tries to have sex with the camel, which immediately runs away. He catches up and after another day or so tries again but fails because the camel runs away. Another day or two later he comes across 3 gorgeous women next to a broken down van. They ask him for help to fix the van and say they will do anything in return. The man is a bit of a mechanic, so he is able to fix their van. The girls come up to him and ask him what he would like. They're willing to do anything. Anything? Asks the man. Anything you want, they reply. The man thinks about it for a minute, then politely asks, "Could you hold down my camel?" A captain in the Foreign Legion was transferred to a desert outpost. On his orientation tour he noticed a very old, seedy-looking camel tied out back of the enlisted men's barracks. He asked the sergeant leading the tour, "What's the camel for?" The sergeant replied, "Well sir, it's a long way from anywhere. And the men have natural sexual urges. So when they do, we have the camel." The captain said, "Well, if it's good for moral, then I guess it's all right with me." After he had been at the fort for about 6 months, the captain could not stand it any more, so he told his sergeant, "Bring in the camel." The sarge shrugged his shoulders and led the camel into the captain's quarters. The captain got a footstool, proceeded to have vigorous sex with the camel. As he stepped, satisfied, down from the stool, and was buttoning his pants, he asked the sergeant, "Is that how the enlisted men do it?" The sergeant replied, "Well sir, they usually just use it to ride into town." A man and woman entered a hotel elevator together, and as the man reached for the button for his floor, he elbowed the woman in the tits and said, "Sorry ma'am, but if your heart is as soft as your breast you'll forgive me." She looked at him and said, "If your cock is as hard as your elbow, I'm in room 307. What's the definition of indefinitely? When your balls slap her ass. You're in. Definitely. Why do elephants paint their testicles red? To hide in cherry trees. What's the loudest sound in the jungle? A giraffe eating cherries.